The air in the grand ballroom of the National Military Museum was thick with the scent of polished oak, expensive scotch, and the quiet hum of a string quartet. It was the annual fundraising gala for the Wounded Warriors Foundation, an event that drew the highest echelons of the military and the corporate world. Admiral Mark Grayson, a man whose 40-year career had been a masterclass in strategic thinking, stood in a corner, nursing a glass of whiskey. His face, a roadmap of age and experience, was etched with a profound sense of weariness. He was a man who had seen the best and worst of humanity, and the self-congratulatory atmosphere of the gala felt like a gilded cage. He saw the chest thumping, the forced smiles, the casual displays of rank, and felt nothing but a deep-seated cynicism. His attention was drawn to a small, unassuming figure working the room. She was a young woman, perhaps no older than 25, dressed in a simple, elegant, black serving gown, moved with a silent, almost ghost-like efficiency. Weaving through the clusters of decorated officers and their bejeweled partners, she was invisible, a part of the room's machinery, her presence so quiet that no one seemed to notice her beyond a hurried wave of the hand. Her name was Sarah, and she was the last person anyone would have expected to be at a place like this. Not. Far from the Admiral, a circle of officers had formed, led by a man whose ego was as outsized as his military career. Captain Julian Vance, a man who believed his 3 medals for valor were the sum total of his worth, was holding court. He was recounting a harrowing tale of a firefight, a story he had told so many times that the details were polished smooth, like a river stone. His audience, a group of officers who were either too junior to contradict him or too eager to earn his favor, listened with rapt attention. "And that, gentleman, is the difference," Julian said, his voice laced with the self-satisfaction of a man who believes he has just delivered a profound truth. "Some people are born for it, for the grit and the steel. And some are just ... observers. You can train all you want, but there's a line. And frankly, some lines can't be crossed. No offense, of course." He winked at a female lieutenant in the group, a condescending gesture that made her face burn with embarrassment, as if on cue. The conversation shifted to a more recent news item, though. First female soldier to complete the rigorous training for a specialized combat unit, Julian scoffed. "They're just trying to fill a quota," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The Navy SEALs, for example. The Brotherhood. It's a myth, this idea that anyone can do it. It's a calling, a bond forged in blood. And fire. You can't just put a pin on your chest and call yourself a part of it." The others laughed, a low, dismissive sound that seemed to vibrate with their own insecurities. Sarah, who was just passing by, a tray of coffee cups in her hands, paused for a moment. Her hands, which had been so steady, faltered, and a few drops of coffee spilled onto the saucer. She moved on, but her eyes, which had been so placid, now held a deep, unblinking intensity. One of the officers in the group, a young lieutenant named Carter, noticed the tattoo as Sarah handed him his cup. It was a simple, elegant design, etched on the inside of her right wrist. He leaned in, squinting, and his face, which had been full of laughter, went still. He asked, his voice a disbelieving whisper. Sarah didn't answer. She simply lowered her hand, a small, subtle gesture of retreat, but it was too late. The damage was done. Julian, who had been watching, stepped forward. His eyes, cold and judgmental, fell on her wrist. He saw the tattoo, a trident, the revered symbol of the Navy SEALs. He let out a loud, mocking laugh that cut through the polite murmur of the gala. "Oh, look at this, gentlemen. Our little coffee. Girl is a SEAL. She's got a trident. The nerve. Do you know what that tattoo means?" Julian turned to the others, his face a mask of scorn. "This is what's wrong with the world today. People think they can just put on a uniform, get a little tattoo, and pretend to be something they're not. They appropriate valor." He pointed a finger at Sarah's face, his voice ringing with self-righteous indignation. "This isn't some cheap Halloween costume, kid. This is the Brotherhood. You're a fake." The laughter returned, a cruel, sharp sound. "That was meant to humiliate." Sarah stood still, her head held high, her face betraying no emotion. But in her eyes, Admiral Grayson, who had moved closer, saw something that made him freeze. It was not shame or embarrassment, but a profound, weary sadness, as if she had heard these words 1,000 times before. He also saw a flicker of something. Elsa's silent, deadly precision in her gaze, a focused calm that he had only ever seen in the faces of his most elite operatives just before a mission. He strode forward. His presence, a silent force that immediately quelled the laughter. Julian and his group, seeing the Admiral, snapped to attention, their faces now a mixture of embarrassment and trepidation. "Admiral," Julian said, his voice now a nervous stutter. "This woman, she's got a fake sealed trident on her wrist." "I know what you were doing, Captain," the Admiral said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. His eyes were not on Julian, but on Sarah. He looked at the tattoo on her wrist. It was a trident, yes, but it was not the standard design. This one was different. It was smaller, thinner, and etched with an impossible precision that made the lines almost microscopic. It was a ghost trident. The Admiral's face, which had been so placid, now showed a flicker of profound recognition. He leaned in, his gaze fixed on the symbol. It was a subtle, almost invisible, signature, the tiny, interlocking circles at the base of the trident. The three-pronged crown with the barely there notches. This wasn't a tattoo you got from a parlor on the corner. This was the mark of a phantom. This was the mark of SEAL Team 6's Red Cell. The Ghosts, a classified unit that performed missions so sensitive that their existence was denied by the government. The Ghost Trident was an unofficial, secret tattoo, a symbol of their motto, "We are the Shadows." The Admiral had only ever seen one other in his entire career, on the arm of his own former commander. His eyes rose from her wrist to her face. He had seen that face before, not in person, but in the highly classified files he had reviewed. Name the designation, the combat history had all flooded back. Her call sign was Wraith. "Julian," the Admiral said, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. "You have no idea what you're talking about. This isn't a fake tattoo. This is the Ghost Trident." The room went silent. The officers, including Julian, stared at him in disbelief. The Ghost Trident was a myth, a bedtime story for young soldiers. It wasn't real. "I don't understand, sir," Julian said, his face pale. The Admiral's eyes did not leave Sarah's. "SEAL Team 6, the Red Cell, Operation Chimera, Muda 3 years ago, deep in enemy territory, a team was sent in to neutralize a rogue general. The mission was a success, but the team was hit. The intel was compromised. They were pinned down, outnumbered 10-1. It was a no-win scenario. They held the line for 48 hours, taking down the entire enemy encampment and securing the target. But they were all presumed dead. No bodies were recovered. The mission was classified. The team was erased from the records." He looked at Julian, his gaze filled with a cold, righteous anger. "This woman," he said, pointing to Sarah, "is not a fake. Her call sign was Wraith. She was the one who led the team, the one who brought them home." The silence in the room was so thick it felt like a physical presence. The officers, who had been so full of bravado moments ago, were now a tableau of mortification and disbelief. The woman they had just called a fake was a ghost, a legend. She was the one who had disappeared into the pages of history, her name. A closely guarded secret, Sarah, now the center of the room's attention, finally spoke. "Sir," she said, her voice clear and calm, "I just wanted to serve coffee." The Admiral's expression softened. He understood. He had seen the look on her face, the weary sadness. She didn't want the praise, the honor, or the attention. She just wanted to be invisible again, Captain Vance, the Admiral said, his voice still a command, but with a new, quiet authority. "Will not speak of this to anyone. She is a civilian now. Her privacy is paramount. Do you understand me?" Julian swallowed hard, his face a mask of profound shame. "Yes, sir," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The Admiral turned back to Sarah. "Why?" he asked, his voice filled with a genuine curiosity. "Why now? After all you've been through? Why this life?" Sarah's eyes met his, and for the first time, she showed a flash of emotion. "Because," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "after a life of saving people, I just want to serve them. I've fought enough wars. I've seen enough death. I just want to live a quiet life. I just want to serve coffee." The Admiral nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. He had seen the same thing in the eyes of his own men, the deep-seated exhaustion that comes from a life of constant battle. He knew that for some, the greatest act of courage wasn't in the fight, but in the choice to put down the sword. He looked at the humble tray in her hands and the simple, elegant gown she wore, and saw not a server, but a hero in disguise. Julian and his group, their faces red with shame, mumbled apologies and retreated into the crowd. Their bravado was gone, replaced by a profound sense of humility. The gala continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The self-congratulatory chatter was gone, replaced by a low, respectful hum. The story of what had happened spread like wildfire through the room, a whisper of a legend that walked among them the next day. Admiral Grayson personally intervened, and Julian Vance was given a formal reprimand for his behavior. He was demoted, his career trajectory permanently altered by his arrogance. Lieutenant Carter, the young officer who had first spotted the tattoo, was inspired by Sarah's quiet dignity. He made it his mission to honor her, without revealing her identity. By ensuring that every service member he came across was treated with the respect they deserved, regardless of their rank or their uniform, Sarah continued her life serving. Coffee at the same cafe she had been working at before, she never spoke of her past. Her hands, which had once held a rifle, now held a coffee cup, a symbol of her chosen peace. Her tattoo, a silent secret mark of her past, was a constant reminder of the life she had left behind. Her story was a cautionary tale, a reminder that valor is not always displayed on a uniform, but is often found in the quiet, unassuming places where heroes choose to live in peace.